just thought I'd give an update as to where I am, because I've got my air test tomorrow on the project. You carry out an air test for various reasons, but it's mainly complying with building regulations, but it's to prove your house is energy efficient. You know, it's not leaking heat. That makes it cheaper to run. It's not full of drafts, so it makes it a nicer place to live, you know, to be in. And if you fail your air test, you can't get your completion certificate. It's all part, well, it's just one part of getting your completion certificate. So what they'll do, they'll open that door and they'll put a frame in the door, and within that frame there's a big fan. And then they energise the fan and they put positive pressure into the property. Then they have details, which I'll give them, of the cubic meterage of the inside of this property. And then that gives them a figure of how much air can leak. Because it is allowed to leak some, but it's got to be within a certain range. So they'll energise the fan, put positive pressure into the property. Then there'll be a couple of probes just laid on the floor connected to his laptop, and then them probes monitor how much air's coming in and how much air's coming out, and then his computer gives you the figure, gives you the result. If it's within the range, that is all well and good and fantastic. If it's not, that's when your problems start, because you've got to go around and find where air's leaking. It's quite easy in a, you know, if you're in an empty room like this. If you're air testing a school or a hospital or something like that, because they'll get tested, well, not all of them, but if you're doing a hospital or a school and you've hundreds of rooms, it's very difficult. Plus, if you've got somewhere like this, you know, if you're in there and you've got air leaking behind a pipe down at the back, you know, you think you've got to get in there somehow and seal that leak. So what you need to be checking is all your windows are shut and properly sealed against all the seals in the frame. All your your trickle vents are shut. Now, some of the air testing people will let you tape them up and others won't. So it depends how the air test goes. So make sure all your trickle vents are shut, all your windows are shut. If you had, I've only got that one door, which is where he's going to put his fan, which isn't so bad, but letterboxes, they can leak your air. Your extractors, I've got an extractor which runs under there and out. Well, that's the extractor there which rises up. So when you think that's a big open area to be leaking air, so I've disconnected the duct behind there and I've sealed that off. I'm not going to restrip it all back out again, but I've sealed that off. The other one, which will really make you fail, is your extractors for bathrooms and utility rooms. So I've bagged that up and put tape around it. I'd rather have it bagged up and taped ready for when he comes, because he might say that's fine. If he doesn't, I'll take it off. But it's easier to have it done than try to do it while he's here, if you get me drift. You need to make sure that all your traps, none of this building's been cleaned yet, so it might not be as clean as it should be in here. But make sure that all your traps have water in them, so that the air don't get straight out the pipe. All your basins, all you need to do is run a bit of water, look. Just make sure it's in the trap. Your toilets, make sure you've got water in the toilets, all your sinks. You know, anywhere where there's a trap, you need to make sure there's water in it. Make sure any Velux windows, make sure that they're properly shut and the handles are clipped up. You know, just in case anybody's opened it and shut it while you've been building and it's not properly shut. I need to check them. Any service penetrations, you need to be dealing with this right from day one. So anytime a plumber or an electrician drills a hole through the wall, you need to be straight up behind them and you need to be sealing them up. I've only got one hole which I hadn't done, and that's that. So my security camera will come through there and plug into there, but I've just sealed over the hole with some tape. This is a removable back panel and there's pipes behind there, but they are all, everything where they go through the wall, it's all sealed, so I'm not worried about that. When you're doing your plasterboarding, this is all dot and dab. So what you do, you put a continuous bead of adhesive around every board so that if air was to get, if you didn't, air would suck under your skirting boards, up behind the plasterboards and out into your roof space and out the building, and you'd fail in an instant. So you make sure that all your plasterboards have a full bead all the way around, and then all my skirtings everywhere have been sealed to the floor. Well, everywhere, in every room. And then you can't get air going underneath. So there's some wardrobes go there, so what I did, I foamed, because there's no skirting board there, I foamed down there to make sure no air can get through. It's all solid, so air can't get under there and up and out. Where you can lose a lot of air is through these. It's through your sockets. If you have conduits and the conduits are going up into your roof space, you know, if you're in a house with loads of sockets, the air gets in here, up the conduit, out the top into the roof space, if that's where they're terminated, and out. And I know this because when you fail your air test, you've obviously got to find out where the air's leaking. So what they do, they give you, if you ask them nicely, they'll give you a smoke pencil, and it looks like a pen, and it's got some crystals in it, and it's got like a little balloon at the end. And it'll put positive pressure in the building. You press the thing and white smoke comes out the end. And the white smoke you could have your smoke pencil over there, press it, the smoke comes along the wall, it just drifts. And all of a sudden you'll see it go straight through there, and then that's when you've got to sort out all your leaks. Make sure everything around all your windows is sealed. You know, anywhere where there's a gap where you can lose air outside. And it's really, when you get into it, it is so interesting, but you've got to be thinking about it right from day one, right when you start your foundations. Be thinking about your air test all the time, because the very first air test I ever did, it was the big Matalan in Scarborough, and I'd never done an air test before, and I was working under a gentleman and he was very confident, oh, we'll be fine, we'll be fine, we'll be fine. and I didn't know what I was looking for. And we worked fine, and we failed miserably. And it was an absolute, we were weeks. It was an absolute nightmare going round trying to seal a building. You know, a finished building with hundreds of pipes and rooms, and, you know, when your ceilings, you know, it might be 7-8 metres high in the atrium, you know, you've got to get scaffolding, cherry pick, whatever's needed to pass that air test. So I learned an awful lot from that, and touch wood, I've done quite a lot of air tests over the years, and that's been my only fail, which was really good because what? I learnt so much from it, and if it hadn't have been such a difficult building to sort out, I maybe wouldn't have learnt what I did. So, all right. So there's a lot of talking there, but fingers crossed for tomorrow. Well, it's a grand morning for the air test. Just feeding the birds. We'll clear all the paths. So there we are, we're just setting up the screen for the fan, just to seal it all and everything. There's all the fan in the box. So what I was expecting was a laptop and probes in here, but how things have changed and progressed, that little box on the top, that's sending all the information to the laptop in the van, and it's just such a clean and efficient process. So the fan's running and all the equipment is monitoring how much air is coming into the building and how much is leaving the building, and subject to that figure, that dictates whether your building passes or not. Well, the gentleman's gone now, and as soon as he started his fan, he knew what had passed. Looking at the initial readings, I had to achieve a reading of less than 4, and that means that the building could lose no more than 4 cubic metres of air an hour. He says I've easily achieved that, but I won't know the reading until later on today, once he's done all the computer stuff back at his office. And while I remember, I hope you had a lovely Christmas, Libby. So I've just received the results of the air test from this morning, and I got 3.62, which I'm delighted with. So a pass is a pass. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little video, and I'm sorry it's so much talking, but thank you very much for watching.